Welcome back, everybody. Well, it's turned into a winter wonderland around here. We got about 8 inches of snow a few days ago, and the old cold temperatures have come with it. It's getting down around 0 at night, so that's made the old house building journey here that much more enjoyable. But I've got garage doors coming on Monday, and so I've got to get my jams prepared for those. I've got 3 12 by 12 doors, and then they're going to hang the openers as well. But it's kind of hard to explain on how I'm going to trim them out, so we'll just go in here and get to work, and I'll bring you along. I'm finishing up my jams so I can come and put my blocking on the outside, but I'm finishing them out to where they're a true 12 by 12 opening. And so I've just found when you're by yourself, especially putting stuff up over your head, go ahead and start your screws down on the ground. It makes life a lot easier. All right, here's what I'm working on. I'm finishing my jams out, and I'm going to go ahead and trim the inside. That way when they screw my garage door up, I'll have a finished face there. But I had them hold my sheetrock back. I marked them a line here on where I wanted to stop it. But I will mortise the edge out of my 2x8, so it'll come up, notch over, and come over and cover this. But then I will take and wrap that with metal, and then I'll wrap this face back around, and then my joint will meet right here where the weather stripping for the garage door will mount. So that's the plan anyway, but I'll have a 2 by 12 up there. So all of my connections for my garage door track will be on my trim, and so I'll have finished metal trim inside, and then my sheetrock, which is hung, will run in behind that mortise, so you'll never be able to see the edge. We'll have something pretty to look at in here. All right, I'll finish the sides, and we'll do the other door, and then we'll start putting some trim on this baby. Now, I'm in no race for time here, but every few seconds helps. The one thing that I do when I'm cutting just rough lumber, rough framing lumber, and you know, within a 1/16 is plenty close enough. First is moving it out here, making a mark, putting your tape up, pulling your square out, marking a line, and then putting everything back up, and then cutting it. What I'll do is I will set my tape on the right edge of my tape right in the center of the board. So in this case, I need 142.5. So I'll just take my measuring tape, I'll hold it at 142.5, and I'll create my mark. Now it creates just a little bit of an arc, but when I saw that, I'll give this line a 1/16 and this line a 1/16, and I'm aiming for the peak. And once you do that, it usually works out pretty good. Let's see how we did. It's close enough for Travis's work, but let's check our measurement. .142.5. I'm working on cutting a rabbet in this 2x8. This will be for my sides, but I'll come back and then I'll cut this corner out, and that'll allow room in here for my sheetrock, and then my metal trim will come around, wrap, and then tuck behind this, so we'll have a finished look out here on the face. But I found when you're ripping this stuff, it's aggravating doing it on a table saw, because like in this case, board's bowed a little bit, so you're having to, you know, trying to hold it and keep it halfway straight so it doesn't bind your saw up. But I've got a little gauge block. I just make me a reference point on the edge, and then with the saw, once I have my mark, I'll set my saw at the end of the board where I want it, and then basically I just take my finger and I'll lock it in here, and then just run it down through there, and that'll keep you pretty straight all the way through. It works pretty good. You might get a splinter on occasion, but most of this lumber you get from Lowe's and Home Depot, they've sort of rounded the edges, so it's not too bad. All right, this is what I'm after. I'll show you this little detail over here. This is where I notched out the back corner, and now my metal will have a place to slip in behind, come out, wrap around, and then I'll wrap metal around from this corner back, and then we'll stop it in here. But there's one down. I'll go do 2 more, and we'll be ready for some metal. I don't know what it is about this batch of screws that I got, but they won't start. But I've fought them in the past and just keep spinning, spinning, spinning. I've learned if you get a screw that won't start well, take a hammer, take it in about 1/4 of an inch, and that starts those threads. Let's see how it works. Works like a charm. There'll probably be someone out there calling me a weenie for not just using the impact for what they say it's made for. They'll pick with a hammer and get you started a lot easier. Now I'm ready to put my header up here, and I've got the rabbet cut out on the edge. So where that rabbet comes up and meets with my header, I'll have to cut that notch out in the end of my header so that groove will match up all the way through, so my metal will slide in. Let's cut 2 notches and we'll be ready to nail it up. And the battery goes dead. Now this blade is dull on this little reciprocating saw, but I'll tell you, when cutting these notches, clean them up, these work like a charm. I don't know how well it'll do with a dull blade, but we'll try it. Trust me, get you a sharp blade, it'll slick them up no time flat.
What do you got to say? You're being put on YouTube. Welcome to the party.
All right, there's what I'm going after. I wasn't brave enough to cut the first one in front of the world and put it on YouTube, so a little trial and error and figuring out how I was going to do it, but there's what it's going to look like. 2 more to do. Now, I'm not a metal man, so I don't do this, well, I don't hardly ever do it. I've done just very little, but I don't really have the tools probably that you would need. I've got just basic snips, and but anyway, it helped to have the right tools, but I'm making do what I got. So I'm gonna lay this header out, we'll cut it, stick it up, and then we'll put the rails up the side. All right, here's what my metal looks like. This will go on the inside of the door frame. My weather stripping will cover this, and then this is what will lock over the edge of my trim. So, well, we'll talk about the thickness and how I calculated that later, but what I'm having to do for the header is, because my rails coming up the side, it will slip into the header, so I'm having to add 3/8 on each side to where that'll slip up inside. So see if we can get it cut. All right, now when I get this up around my header, This will be my side piece. It'll come on the inside of my turn down, and when it slides up, it'll fit inside this groove, which I'll extend this on up a 1/2 inch. That way it can slide up in there and finish that joint off pretty neat. Alright, so it slips down in my notch I've got back there, in which I've left a little gap here in the side to where my side piece can go right up underneath that, and it locks in all the way around. Got a little trim piece here, it comes back around the corner. Don't look too bad. Alright, this is the bottom of the side piece, so I've just been a little flange back here, which will slide back underneath the door frame, so it'll slide back in here, so that way any moisture gets in here, it'll keep it from wicking back up underneath and wicking up into my board. Well, we're ready for some garage doors. I got a little quicker as I went and figured it out, but from number 1 to number 3, I got a little bit better. But I'll show you what I did on my gaps here around my edges and the top. If you'll notice, this has got a little play, it's just flopping, but what I did was I left this to where when they screwed that garage door track back to it, it goes back solid against my frame. And I've got about an 1/8 inch gap over here. So I didn't want it to be tight here, and then when they screwed it down here, it put a crease in that metal. So that's the reason I left it. But there's only 3 little finish nails in the jam side. There's no fasteners anywhere on the, you know, what will be seen. Weather stripping will come in here and cover this. So for the rest of my jam, if you're wondering, well, what's he gonna do, and this is where I messed up, there'll be a piece of 90 material that'll come around the corner, come over here and stop about a 1/2 inch short of the end of the jam, and it will look like this. But when Travis was doing all this figuring, the simplest measurement in the whole project I messed up on. I didn't take into account the 1.5 inch material that I added, so this material comes over here and stops about right here. I'm going to be just shy, I think, actually it'll come about right here. I think I'm going to be just shy where my weather stripping will hit. I could probably still put it in here and put my weather stripping and then caulk that joint, but I don't know, I don't like that. So material will come around, come over here and stop, and then weather stripping will go right here and cover that gap, and that should have it pretty well sealed up. Well, I promise you I didn't buy used doors. But these doors came in about a month ago. They received them and they stored them in their warehouse. And so apparently they've got a sawmill and it is next door to the open warehouse. And so they were burning, I guess, just leftovers, getting ready to their waste. And so that soot worked its way in that warehouse and got all over insulation panels. And they're worse on that end. But they're supposed to be coming to replace all these insulation panels so they'll look brand new when they get that done. But I'm pleased with the way my trim worked out. I wanted it to be clean and neat around my garage doors, and so when they mounted their tracks, everything worked out on their trim. And one thing that I did benefit from that I didn't take into account, but all of your wires for like your sensors coming down to your button for your opener, with that little bit of gap in behind that trim, was able to tuck all those wires in behind that so you don't see any wires running around it. As for openers, I went with a LiftMaster, and I don't know if they refer to them as a sidewinder. Somebody can correct me there, I don't know the correct terminology, but I put 2x8s on the sides for my trim. That way they'd have plenty of room to get everything mounted on my trim. So nothing screwed to the wall. I did go ahead and paint there where that was going to be located so I wouldn't have to try to get in behind it. But I used those over in the other building and I'm really pleased with them. So they're quiet, you don't have any track system, you don't have any chains or belts to worry with. And I'll open one up here and we'll go outside and look at the trim. I did order some more material to come out and cover this corner. I ended up running within about a ½ inch of the corner, and then everything's going this way, and then my weather stripping come and covered that gap. So we've got pretty well the whole opening cased in. Should keep the water out. I went ahead and put some zip tape across that top, so for the time being, if any water did get up there, it wouldn't set down inside my angle. But trim will go around this door, and I'm gonna do it a little bit different versus doing just J trim here and running my siding into it. I want something a little beefier, so when my stone guys, or before they came, around all my doors I made them some stops so they could lay their stone right up to it. Then these will unscrew and come off, and then I'll have a piece of 2x8 trim that'll go up the sides, and then I'm either going to use a 2x10 or a 2x12 up top. It's a 12x12 door, so I want it to be a little bit beefier. Now I'm going to put a metal board and batten siding on this house. I've never done it before, never used it before, but I like the looks of it, and it'll be a little bit different. But for my trim, I'm planning on using a wood trim with that metal siding. Now obviously that brings on more talk where you terminate it on the sides. I'll tell you how I'm going to do it, but I ain't got it figured out yet. But anyway, I got some ideas swirling in my head, but maybe I'll figure it out before long. Next project at hand is I picked up a load of tongue and groove pine material. That'll be going on living room, kitchen ceiling, and then we're going to put some on the walls as well. So that project starts later today. Well, if you want to shine your garage doors up a little bit on the inside, that worked pretty good. That was obviously a trial run. I've never done that before, but I'm pretty pleased with the way it turned out. That metal work, I don't do it much, but I had a pretty good time figuring it out. I did learn that if I was doing that every day, I'd have some more tools. That way, you know, you could force cutting and bending, you'd have the right stuff, but you just got to make do with what you got. But turned out pretty good. I'm pleased with it. But if you got any questions about how I done it, hey, stick them down in the comments. I'll do my best to answer it. But if you watch this one, I appreciate it, and we'll catch you later.